The network equipment giant's China surveillance collaboration. In the gleaming corporate headquarters of Cisco Systems in San Jose, California, executives were making decisions that would fundamentally alter the balance between technology and human rights on a global scale. Between 2002 and 2020, America's largest networking equipment manufacturer didn't just sell hardware to China. They actively collaborated in building the digital infrastructure that would become one of the world's most sophisticated surveillance and censorship systems. This is the story of how Cisco Systems, a company built on the promise of connecting the world, instead helped disconnect millions of Chinese citizens from fundamental freedoms, all while generating billions in revenue from what company insiders privately called the Golden Shield Project, better known to the world as China's Great Firewall. The relationship between Cisco and Chinese authorities began innocuously enough in the early 2000s, as China embarked on massive internet infrastructure development. Cisco's routers, switches, and networking equipment were considered the gold standard globally, and Chinese officials were eager to modernize their telecommunications networks. However, what distinguished Cisco's approach from other technology companies was their willingness to customize their products specifically for surveillance and censorship purposes. Internal Cisco documents later revealed that the company created specialized versions of their equipment with enhanced monitoring capabilities, designed explicitly to help Chinese authorities track internet usage, block specific websites, and monitor communications. The company's engineers worked directly with Chinese officials to ensure their equipment could seamlessly integrate with surveillance systems, creating what one former Cisco employee described as the backbone of digital authoritarianism. The technical architecture that Cisco helped build was breathtaking in its scope and chilling in its implications. The company provided China with advanced deep packet inspection technology, which allowed authorities to examine not just where internet traffic was going, but the actual content of communications. Cisco's equipment could identify and block specific keywords, track individual users across multiple platforms, and create detailed profiles of online behavior. The system could monitor email communications, instant messages, web browsing history, and even voice over internet protocol calls. Perhaps most disturbing, Cisco developed specialized software that could automatically detect and suppress content related to political dissent, religious freedom, and human rights activism. The company's routers were programmed to recognize and block access to websites discussing topics like Tibetan independence, the Falun Gong spiritual movement, democracy movements, and criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. Financial documents paint a stark picture of just how lucrative this collaboration became for Cisco. Between 2002 and 2020, the company generated over $8 billion in revenue from China, with government contracts representing nearly 40% of that total. Cisco's annual reports consistently highlighted China as one of their fastest-growing markets, with revenue increasing by an average of 15% annually throughout the 2000s. The company established multiple research and development centers in China, employing over 3,000 engineers specifically focused on developing surveillance-compatible networking equipment. Internal financial projections showed that Cisco executives expected the surveillance equipment market to generate over $2 billion in additional revenue by 2025. The company's stock price surged by over 300% during the peak years of their China collaboration, with Wall Street analysts specifically citing their strategic government partnerships as a key driver of growth. The human cost of Cisco's technology became tragically apparent through documented cases of persecution and imprisonment. Chinese authorities used Cisco-powered surveillance systems to identify and arrest thousands of political dissidents, human rights activists, and religious minorities. The equipment helped facilitate the widespread persecution of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province, where Cisco's networking gear formed the technological foundation of what international observers called a digital concentration camp. Surveillance data collected through Cisco equipment was used to separate families, justify arbitrary detentions, and monitor every aspect of daily life for millions of people. Human rights organizations documented numerous cases where individuals were arrested based on internet activity tracked through Cisco's monitoring systems, including journalists who researched sensitive political topics, activists who organized peaceful protests, and ordinary citizens who simply shared information about government corruption. The legal challenges began mounting in 2011 when human rights groups filed a landmark lawsuit against Cisco in U.S. federal court, alleging that the company had knowingly aided and abetted human rights abuses in China. The lawsuit, representing Chinese dissidents and Falun Gong practitioners, presented evidence that Cisco had specifically marketed their surveillance capabilities to Chinese authorities, knowing these tools would be used to persecute political and religious minorities. Court documents revealed internal Cisco presentations that explicitly described how their equipment could help Chinese authorities combat the Falun Gong and monitor subversive activities. The case dragged through federal courts for over a decade, with Cisco spending an estimated $50 million on legal fees while consistently denying any wrongdoing. Although the company ultimately prevailed in court, arguing that they were simply selling commercial networking equipment, the litigation exposed damaging internal communications, showing clear awareness of how their technology was being used. Congressional scrutiny intensified significantly after 2016, as lawmakers from both parties began questioning American companies' role in enabling Chinese surveillance capabilities. House and Senate hearings revealed that Cisco executives had regular meetings with Chinese intelligence officials to discuss technical specifications for monitoring equipment. Congressional investigators discovered that Cisco had provided training to Chinese technicians on advanced surveillance techniques and had shared proprietary source code that enhanced monitoring capabilities. The company's CEO, John Chambers, was forced to testify before Congress multiple times, defending Cisco's China operations while acknowledging that the company had limited visibility into how their equipment was ultimately used. Perhaps most damaging, congressional investigators revealed that Cisco had continued selling surveillance-capable equipment to China even after receiving detailed reports about human rights abuses facilitated by their technology. The geopolitical implications of Cisco's collaboration extended far beyond U.S.-China relations, influencing global technology governance and human rights policies worldwide. Other authoritarian governments, observing China's success with Cisco-powered surveillance, began purchasing similar equipment for their own censorship and monitoring programs. Countries including Iran, Venezuela, and Syria acquired Cisco networking gear specifically for internet surveillance purposes, creating a global network of digital authoritarianism powered by American technology. The revelations about Cisco's role in enabling Chinese surveillance contributed to broader concerns about technology companies' responsibility for human rights violations and sparked international debates about export controls on surveillance equipment. European Union officials cited Cisco's China collaboration as justification for stricter regulations on technology exports, while human rights organizations used the case to advocate for corporate accountability measures worldwide. The internal culture at Cisco during this period reveals a corporate environment where financial considerations consistently overrode ethical concerns about human rights implications. Former employees described a company culture where sales to China were celebrated regardless of their ultimate use, with top performers receiving bonuses specifically for government surveillance contracts. Internal emails revealed that some Cisco engineers privately expressed concerns about their technology being used for human rights violations, but these concerns were consistently dismissed by senior management. The company's compliance department was reportedly understaffed and lacked authority to halt sales even when clear evidence of misuse emerged. Training materials for Cisco sales staff explicitly encouraged targeting government surveillance contracts, with detailed presentations on how to market monitoring capabilities to authoritarian regimes. Perhaps most troubling, internal documents showed that Cisco executives viewed human rights criticism as primarily a public relations challenge, rather than a fundamental ethical issue requiring operational changes. The legacy of Cisco's collaboration with Chinese surveillance efforts continues to reverberate through both the technology industry and international human rights advocacy today. The surveillance infrastructure that Cisco helped build in the 2000s has evolved into an even more sophisticated system of digital control, now incorporating artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and predictive analytics built upon the networking foundation that American engineers designed. Current estimates suggest that over 50 million Chinese citizens remain under constant digital surveillance using systems that trace their origins to Cisco's early collaboration with Chinese authorities. The company has never issued a formal apology for its role in enabling human rights abuses, instead maintaining that they were simply providing commercial networking equipment in compliance with applicable laws. However, the broader technology industry has been forced to grapple with the ethical implications highlighted by Cisco's case, leading to new corporate policies, government regulations, and international frameworks designed to prevent technology from being used to facilitate human rights violations. The story of Cisco's China collaboration serves as a stark reminder that in the digital age, the corporate decisions made in Silicon Valley boardrooms can have profound consequences for human freedom and dignity on the other side of the world, and that the true cost of placing profits above principles may only become apparent years or decades after the initial transactions are completed.